Hello, Alpha. Or should I call you Zai?
Where is Yellow Church? The wiki refuses to say he's an AI like the original Church. Some fans believe he never existed, other fans agree he could be an AI fragment. But the question is, why won't they tell us, why didn't they tell us anything about the character? From 6 to 10, we get backstory on all the AI, we get story about all the AI. Every AI character from 1 through 5 and Out of Mind, they get delved into deeper, except Yellow Church. Well, I think finally I've figured out where he could be. So this is a theory that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's one of my favorite theories that I've actually come up with. And the frustrating part is, by every rule of Red versus Blue, Yellow Church is an AI fragment, or at least an AI. If you watched my first Yellow Church video, you'll know that I came to the conclusion that he's actually an AI fragment, Zai, the only AI fragment we've seen the name of, but never the character. Just like Yellow Church, we've never seen his AI fragment name, but we've seen him, and neither of them do we know their location. A lot of people theorize that Agent Georgia had Zai, that's why we never saw him, but from watching the show and knowing the humor of the show, I feel like when they showed Agent Georgia fly into the window in the end credit scene of Season 10, that would have been a perfect opportunity for a joke that they just missed, like the AI smacking into the window too. Or the AI showing up in the room to talk to Utah, and then disappearing when Georgia slides down the window. So I don't think that Georgia had an AI. The thing is, after the Reds and Blues were blown to the future and Church found out how to follow them and get out of the time loop, we don't know where Yellow Church goes. In Blood Gulch, Yellow Church is sent back to the time loop in Season 5, and then sent back to the hallway with the other Church clones, because we saw a brief glimpse of him in the hallway when the time loops started. From there, we don't know where he goes. And I thought about it, all the places that Yellow Church, the AI fragment, Zai, could have been sent after that point. There's the offsite storage facility with the Church clones. He could have been sent there with the clones, but we never see any sign of him. No clue. If he were there, the UNSC would eventually get him and it goes nowhere, story-wise. He also could have gone to the AI storage facility at Command. If Yellow Church was sent there, we never saw him at all either. He would have been killed off screen without us knowing he was there. That would be like a character in the MCU getting dusted off screen, and then when he came back to life, gets shot off screen, but they never tell us. It just doesn't make any sense story-wise. The next idea, he could be at the Sidewinder base. He could have just been left in the base on Sidewinder, but we never see any sign of him there, other than the computer he was in during the time loop. If this happened, he just ends up in the hands of the UNSC, because at the end of Season 8, after Meta's defeated, the UNSC shows up and takes all the evidence they can. Then there's another freelancer. Yellow Church could have been given to another freelancer, but we never see it, so it could be irrelevant. Not to mention, that goes against the decision to remove the AI from freelancers after Wash went crazy with Epsilon's memories. It's possible he was the AI that was going to be given to South before she betrayed Command and stole Delta, but, we'll never know. Another small option could be another simulation base. He could have been hidden, just like the Alpha, but we never saw that, so why would it be relevant? We don't see any characters that could have been him other than maybe Peak from the Funhouse episodes, who looks just like the Marathon version of him, but he doesn't sound like Church, and he dies in his ship anyway, so it becomes irrelevant. And for this kind of theory, I like the idea of his fate being relevant to the story. Any of these scenarios that don't end in him dying usually lead to him winding up with the UNSC, and from there we know the director's research and tech ends up with Charon, and then ends up on Chorus, or being studied in secret. The issue is, after the ship crashes on Sidewinder, we never see the director's plans or research unless it comes to trying to take over the prophecy in Season 4 and 5. Or do we? If you consider the time travel actually existing and not being a simulation that's never explained for no reason, we can see where his study of the time distortion unit actually goes. First, his research with the time distortion unit starts with the red and blue grunts in Beaver Creek. We see them coming back from the dead over and over again, and I suggested that that was the time distortion unit's early testing. The director sees the reversal of death can drive the user insane, so next step, because he wouldn't want their soldiers going insane after dying over and over again. The next step would be Church's time loop. The reversal of death didn't work, so we tried time loops. This requires AI assistance, so he has to test it on Church first. This results in Season 3 and the Church clones in the time loop. Church splits and creates Yellow Church, a fragment. The next time we see the time loop used is in Season 5 with Wyoming. With Wyoming, when we see Wyoming using the time loop, he leaves copies just like Church did. But the difference is Wyoming isn't an AI, and as we see, the director learned from the time loop with Church because Gamma isn't in Wyoming's armor while he does this. Gamma's just helping activate it from a distance in the tank. The time loops are closer gaps in time than with Church, so Gamma may not need to be in the armor. This could make it easier for soldiers to be stopped in combat if him and the AI are separate, because as we see, Gamma and Wyoming are taken down when they're not working together. This is probably why the meta never uses the time loop function, but only slows down time. The AI in the meta know from Gamma that the loop will put the AI fragments in danger of fragmenting and making copies, which kind of defeats the purpose of Sigma reassembling the Alpha. Slowing down time is more in line with what AI are used to seeing anyway, as far as experiencing time. And I think if Meta had gotten Zai at the same time as the time distortion unit, he may have actually reached metastability, because Zai actually seems to be Melancholia, one of the stages before metastability. None of the other AI could be Melancholia except Epsilon, who he actually does go after in Season 6, because Epsilon is all the painful memories. The next step is Tucker's sword. We learn that with the sword, Tucker's able to remember all of Wyoming's loops. It could be possible that since both pieces of tech are connected, if Tucker or Wyoming had both the devices, the time distortion unit and the sword, they could loop time without leaving clones. Just like the time travel from Season 17 by jumping into your past body. That's one connection to Season 17 that I thought was interesting. So basically, if they had the time distortion unit and the sword, they could time travel without leaving copies. Then there's the plan with Tex. The whole point in the director using time distortion tech would be to help the freelancers survive in war, but everything he does results in an ulterior motive to save his wife from death. Beta, or Tex, is the AI memory of his wife, and in Season 5, he has all the pieces he needs in one spot. He has Tex on the ship, he has the sword, and he has the time distortion unit. All three of those together could be something sent back to save Allison. She wouldn't go insane from reverse death. She wouldn't leave clones from time loops. It'd be perfect. This is why he would recruit Tex in Season 5 to defeat the aliens and take over the prophecy. In Season 5, the freelancers probably could have fulfilled the plan without Tex. They had Wyoming copies and probably other operatives that could be helping. Why do they need to convert Tex to help take over the aliens? Yes, it could help him finish the plan faster, but why did the director want Tex back other than she being the memory of his wife? Once they took over the aliens to end the war, they would have everything they needed to save Allison. Ultimately, this plan fails, and they lose the ship for a year, so the director moves on and keeps looking into his research with the Church clones in the Offsite Swords facility, and he goes in search of the orb. There's one problem, though, with sending Tex back in time with the sword and the time distortion unit. It's possible that the AI could fragment if they failed over and over again, right? There is one bit of research we're forgetting. Jimmy's implantation. In Season 14, we see that the director put Alpha into the brain of Jimmy to see if an AI could be implanted to fully control the brain of a human, and also study the effects of this pairing on the human mind. It causes Church to think that Jimmy's body is his, and Jimmy's memories are his. How could this research play a part in this?
You're the final piece in a very complicated little operation. In fact, you're the most important part, I'd say.
Jimmy was implanted with Alpha after the crash on Sidewinder in Season 10, and that's when I had theorized that Church was sent back to after the bomb went off. If that's correct, that's technically the last time period we see Yellow Church in. Past director would have just seen that it's possible, giving a freelancer an AI could also give them the memories of the torture to create the fragment. And he just saw that an AI can take over the body entirely of a person. We saw the reverse death method failed. We saw the time loop method with AI failed. And the director never got to test the sword. Truthfully, the director wants to save his wife first and foremost. And I think if the director's plan was to save Tex by giving her the time distortion unit and the sword and an AI that could run both, then I feel like he wouldn't want to just do it knowing he could do it. He'd want to make sure it would work, because from the time loop, it looked as if things couldn't be changed. Or if they were changed, they would just happen again.
A way to bring her back right this time. I just need a bit more time. Perhaps the next time around.
But we never see what that method is. To bring her back right might imply that he can save the real living, breathing body of Allison, because clearly he has AI of her, and they're not good enough. He just needs the right Tex AI to do this implantation, which he can't find, leading to the Tex drones in Season 10.
He kept trying. He kept trying to get her right.
She needs to be right because they always fail and resent him. As a scientist, he has to test his hypothesis first. He would want to make sure he could actually change time. So to test the Jimmy implant theory, he would probably test that research on a separate soldier first. So it's possible he sent this AI, Zai, back in time to be implanted in a soldier, maybe around one of the worst battles in the UNSC history. When implanting the AI into a freelancer, it would go into the back of the neck, which, from what I looked up online, would be the cerebellum, controlling the coordination, making sense if it was meant to enhance their fighting abilities and reflexes. But to control the whole mind, such as free will, that would be implanted in the front and require more surgery, hence why Jimmy screams,
Ah! What are you doing? Let's go! Ah!
So this may leave a scar on the front of his face. And let's say this research succeeds and this soldier can survive the war. It's possible if he's enhanced, he could save a few other soldiers, and that would be beneficial. Which would explain why 2 soldiers in the UNSC, unrelated to the Project Freelancer program, have the only missing AI symbol on their helmets. Locus and Felix. Where is Yellow Church? Or Zai? Implanted in Locus's mind. This is why he has the scar on his face, why him and Felix have the Zai symbol on their helmets, since they are a team, and Locus is the reason why Felix is alive. This is why only Locus can live without Felix, not the other way around. Locus literally made sure Felix survived the battle, because without the time travel and AI enhancements, Felix could have died the first time around. When I first found out about Locus, and the mystery was brought up of who he was, I joked, oh, maybe he's Yellow Church. And then I thought about it. Aside from the connections I've made between Locus, Yellow Church, Zai, and the Great Destroyer in my Great Prophecy video and my Locus is the Great Destroyer video, both are described as apathetic on the Wikipedia. And they're both named after their armor, Locus armor and Yellow Church. Felix can't live without Locus, just like the director can't live without Tex. The director wanted to save Allison, but Locus ended up saving Felix. In a way, Locus took Tex's place by being the one that the director saved with the research. And Locus eventually got Tex's Invis unit, and it connects why Locus and Tex have connections to the Great War. When Wash was knocked out in Season 12 and he was wearing his black and yellow armor, in the vision he was wearing the blue and yellow armor again, the church armor, a yellow striped church. Locus and Wash are similar, even down to the fact that they were both affected by a church AI fragment. And every version of Alpha, including the church clones and Epsilon, has produced a Tex memory. And with Yellow Church, his thing was with Caboose that he was a guy version of Sister, which is ironic. If he went to Locus, he'd be producing a guy version of Tex. But there's one thing that, to me, puts the nail in the coffin for this.
If Tex gets out of here with O'Malley and that kid, there's no one that's going to be able to stop her.
Lose. I won't lose.
Too late, fucked it up.
Oh, crap. Caboose! Tex! Anyone in here? Who's that?
Felix, come in. Felix, I've made it through the gateway. Equipment is malfunctioning. If you can hear this.
Freeze!
Freeze!
What?
Don't move! Go, you fucking move! Lower your weapon!
Yes. Hello, Church. You must be very happy to see me.
What do we have here, men?
Caught us a monster, Captain.
But how about you tell us what you're doing here?
Hey, what's up? Hey, who the fuck are you? Sister? Yep. I'm Sister, Church's twin brother.
Wait a second. This destroyer guy. He dresses like me, but he's dumber than anyone else in existence.
No. Felix,
I say we blow its brains out.
that's your answer to everything. You're me.
Sir, I think it's trying to surrender. You listen here.
No.
You are a soldier. In this war, you are nothing but a suit of armor and a gun. So when I give you an order, you damn well follow it. Do I make myself clear?
I would argue it's that too, but what's his point?
Ah, never mind. Ugh.
Hey, can I ask you one quick... Huh?
No! Drop him! Drop him!
The one that I almost went with other than this was Locus saw his past UNSC colors Locus, and they had a conversation, but the past Locus couldn't understand anything present-day Locus was saying, and then more and more copies of the past Locus showed up, and they all started ganging up on him.
And then there's Cyrus, who I believe worked for the director. Cyrus's codename is based off the Egyptian god Osiris, who was the god of the underworld and resurrection. Based off the fact that this project was made to figure out how to bring back Allison from the dead, thus resulting in Felix's survival. Since I theorize that the prophecy is time-correcting itself, this would explain the coincidence of Locus running into the Reds and Blues again if Yellow Church was inside his head. And it would make Locus and Zai the earliest alteration in the timeline that time would want to fix. And Felix's death, the final fix in the timeline. Technically, Yellow Church lived through the first prophecy, and was sent back in time, and saw the Church clones, and then back even farther into the hallway where the lava pit was. And then Tex was sent forward in time to activate the second part of the prophecy, and after that, the Reds and Blues encountered the Tex drones, and eventually encountered Locus and Felix at the Purge Temple, both iterations of the prophecy being completed when Locus claimed the Great Sword on Chorus. Locus having Zai ties both iterations of the prophecy together on Chorus. If this theory were correct, that would mean that the director's research actually did succeed, but with Locus. And with the director and the chairman's rivalry ending with the director's tragic death, and with Locus helping the Reds and Blues defeat the chairman, that's the director's final insult to Hargrove.
If you run, we'll find you.